If you've ever felt trapped in that endless top 40 loop, you know the feeling. Same songs, same sounds, same safe choices. Like the world hit repeat and lost the button to try something new. Today, I want to introduce you to a crew that's built to do the exact opposite. Change the station entirely. Bullet and Flight is based right in the heart of the 505, Albuquerque, where the green chili runs hot and the creative energy somehow runs even hotter. And when I say Bullet and Flight, I'm not talking about one single project or one single vibe. Think of it more like a parent company to a whole family of artistic misfits. People who don't fit neatly into the usual boxes, and honestly, don't want to. At the center of everything is a mission that's pretty simple to say, but not always easy to pull off. Elevate the voices that usually get talked over. The artists who get labeled too niche, or too different, or that weird one, too Albuquerque. Whatever that's supposed to mean. If you've ever heard something like that about your work, this is your invitation to pull up a chair. Because that's not a deal breaker here. That's the whole point. Bullet and Flight is built around inclusivity, creative community building, and giving underrepresented artists the megaphone they deserve. Not as a trend, not as a marketing angle, but as the core identity. It's a response to a creative world that can feel gated, filtered, and overly polished, where the most interesting voices get told to tone it down so they can be easier to sell. And here's where it gets fun. Bullet and Flight doesn't believe in staying in one lane. Because why would you?
Why drive a sedan when you could take a spaceship?
The whole approach is more like, what does human expression look like across every format? And then going after all of it. Let's start with music, because that's a major part of the DNA. The mindset here isn't pick a genre and stay in it. It's more like, what's the vibe, and does it hit? That can mean the spiritual charge of gospel, the late-night pulse of house music, the smooth storytelling and emotion of R&B, or even that classic country charm where life falls apart but somehow the drink is still cold. It's not about fitting into a category. It's about making something that feels alive. But it doesn't stop at music. There's a strong dedication to the spoken word too. Podcasts that get into the real stuff, not just surface-level chatter, and poetry that doesn't play nice. The kind that lands heavy, the kind that says what people avoid saying, the kind that reminds you words can still be dangerous in the best way. Then there's film and TV writing. Getting into scripts that actually have a heartbeat. Not another recycled reboot of a reboot. Not something designed by committee to offend the fewest people possible. The focus is on stories with soul. Stories with perspective. Stories that sound like they came from real lives, in real places, with real edges. And of course, the stage.
Because there is nothing like live performance.
It's unpredictable, it's electric, and yeah, anything can happen. And usually does. The stage is where art stops being an idea and becomes a moment, right in front of people who can feel it in real time. So why would an artist want to plug into something like this? Because being a starving artist has been romanticized for way too long, and it doesn't need to be the default. And being a lonely artist, trying to build everything by yourself, with no village, no network, no support, That's even worse. Bullet and Flight is about building that village on purpose. The goal is to take the talent that's been brewing in the Southwest, often overlooked, often underestimated, and project it outward. Not in a please notice us kind of way, but in a we're already here, and we're bringing the whole sound with us kind of way. Bullet and Flight positions itself as a launch pad, a safety net, and the hype you didn't realize you were missing. And let's be honest, a lot of people are tired of gatekeepers. Tired of needing permission. Tired of feeling like they have to sand down everything interesting about their work to be taken seriously. If that's you, this is a space that's built for finding your tribe. People who want loud, weird, real art, and who aren't afraid to make it together.
If you want to get in the mix, Deombase is https://justdominic.
And if you want the visuals, you can find the YouTube channel at Just Dominic Music. Bullet and Flight Music, LLC is the company behind it all. And the invitation is open. Check out what's being built, listen to what's coming out, and if you're ready to change the station, this is a good place to start.
Well, the times they are a-changing fast. Some old truths just built to last. We're the Christ following network on Bullet and Flight Radio. Yeah, the Christ following network on Bullet and Flight Radio. Christ following network on Bullet and Flight Radio.
Jim Bakker built the largest religious broadcasting empire in American history. $172 million a year. A Christian theme park bigger than Disneyland. Millions of followers tuning in every single day. And then he went to federal prison. 45 years for fraud. The longest white-collar sentence in American history at the time. A judge who looked him in the eye and called him a money-grubbing preacher. A jury that saw through every excuse. But here's what makes this story different from every other televangelist scandal you've ever heard. Jim Bakker got out. He started a new show. He went right back to selling. And nobody stopped him. The man who defrauded 150,000 believers out of their lifetime savings walked out of federal prison and built another ministry. Same format, same appeals. Same fundraising playbook that put him behind bars in the first place. Now, if you're watching this and you're wondering whether your own church might have the same red flags, we actually put together a free checklist. 12 warning signs pulled straight from Scripture. Takes about 5 minutes to go through. Links in the description if you want it. But right now, let me show you how a preacher from Muskegon, Michigan built a religious empire that rivaled Disney, and how it all came crashing down in the most spectacular fashion American television had ever seen. To understand how big Jim Bakker became, you have to understand what television looked like in the 1970s. There were 3 networks: ABC, NBC, CBS. That was it. And religious programming was relegated to Sunday mornings when nobody was watching. Low budget, boring, an afterthought for the networks checking a box. Jim Bakker saw an opportunity that nobody else saw. He'd cut his teeth working for Pat Robertson at the 700 Club. He understood television production. He understood entertainment. And he had a vision that went way beyond Sunday morning sermons. What if Christian television looked like Johnny Carson? What if it had the production value of a Hollywood talk show? What if it was entertaining enough that people would actually choose to watch it? In 1974, Jim and his wife Tammy Faye launched the PTL Club from Charlotte, North Carolina. PTL stood for Praise the Lord, or People That Love, depending on which fundraising appeal you were watching. The name itself was a marketing tool, and within 5 years, they weren't just a religious program, they were a phenomenon. 13 million people watching every single day. Not every week, every day. That's more viewers than most network shows were pulling during prime time. The PTL Club became must-see television for millions of American Christians. Jim Bakker had charisma. He could talk to a camera like he was talking to a friend in their living room. He was emotional without being preachy. He was relatable. He cried on air when talking about his struggles. He laughed with guests. He made Christianity feel accessible and exciting. Tammy Faye was the perfect complement. Her exuberant personality, her over-the-top makeup, her genuine warmth that came through the screen. Together, they created a television chemistry that audiences couldn't get enough of. By 1984, the PTL Club was broadcasting on its own satellite network to stations across the country. They had their own production facilities in Charlotte that rivaled anything Hollywood had built. State-of-the-art cameras, professional lighting, a staff of hundreds. But the broadcast was just the beginning. Because Jim Bakker didn't want to build a television ministry. He wanted to build a Christian city. A place where believers could live, work, and worship together. A permanent community centered on faith and family. Heritage USA opened in 1978 on 2,300 acres in Fort Mill, South Carolina, just across the state line from Charlotte. And it kept expanding every single year. New attractions, new hotels, new facilities. Jim Bakker's vision was unlimited, and so was his ambition. By 1986, Heritage USA was the third most visited theme park in America. Third, behind only Disneyland and Disney World. A Christian theme park built by a televangelist was drawing more visitors than Six Flags, more than Universal Studios, more than SeaWorld. It had a water park called Heritage Island with wave pools and water slides, a shopping mall called Main Street USA, multiple hotels including the Grand Heritage Grand Towers, a television studio where you could watch PTL being filmed live, conference centers, condominiums, campgrounds, its own fire department, its own security force. They were calling it the Christian Disneyland. And millions of believers made the pilgrimage to Fort Mill, South Carolina, like it was a holy site. Families saved for years to bring their kids. Churches organized bus trips. It became a rite of passage for evangelical families across the South. At its peak, 6 million visitors a year, $172 million in annual revenue flowing through PTL's accounts. Jim Bakker was no longer a televangelist. He was running a multimedia corporation with thousands of employees, and the money just kept coming. Here's how the PTL machine actually worked. The television show was free to watch. You could tune in every day and never pay a dime. But throughout every broadcast, Jim and Tammy Faye would make appeals. Send us $25 and you'll receive this Bible. Send us $100 and you'll get this prayer cloth blessed by Jim Bakker himself. Call now and a prayer partner will pray with you over the phone. The phone banks were always staffed, operators standing by, as they used to say. And people called, thousands of them, every single day. But the real money wasn't in the small donations. The real money was in something Jim called lifetime partnerships. For a one-time gift of $1,000, you and your family would receive free lodging at Heritage USA for 4 days and 3 nights every single year for the rest of your life. Think about that pitch. $1,000, and you've got guaranteed vacation accommodations forever at the Christian Disneyland. Your kids could grow up coming to Heritage USA every summer. Your grandkids could inherit the partnership. It was sold as an investment in your family's spiritual life that would pay dividends for generations. Jim Bakker was selling timeshares for Jesus, and people bought them by the thousands, by the tens of thousands. Retirees on fixed incomes sent in their savings. Young families put it on credit cards. Churches pooled donations to buy partnerships for their pastors. The money poured in so fast that PTL could barely count it all. Some days, the offerings totaled more than $1 million. $1 million in one day. The problem was the math, and the math was catastrophic. Jim Bakker sold over 150,000 lifetime partnerships for the Heritage Grand Hotel. He kept selling them long after any reasonable capacity had been reached. He sold them to fund new construction. He sold them to cover operating expenses. He sold them because the whole operation depended on new money coming in. The Heritage Grand Hotel had 500 rooms. You don't need to be an accountant to see that math doesn't work. 150,000 partnerships, 500 rooms. If even a fraction of those partnership holders showed up at the same time, expecting the accommodations they'd paid for, there wouldn't be anywhere to put them. The hotel couldn't physically honor the promises PTL had made. But Jim Bakker didn't stop selling. He couldn't stop selling, because the money from new partnerships was being used to fund new construction, new programming, operating expenses, and a lifestyle that was starting to raise some serious questions. The Bakkers were living large, and I mean large. Multiple homes across the country, a mansion in Palm Springs, another in Gatlinburg, Tennessee, matching Rolls-Royces for Jim and Tammy Faye, a Mercedes, a Corvette, an air-conditioned doghouse for their pets. Yes, an air-conditioned doghouse. That detail came out in the trial, and it became a symbol of everything wrong with the PTL ministry. Tammy Faye's wardrobe budget alone was reportedly in the hundreds of thousands of dollars per year. Designer clothes, furs, her signature makeup and wigs became legendary, not for their subtlety. Jim Bakker's salary officially was around $200,000 a year, but the bonuses told a different story. In 1 year alone, Jim and Tammy Faye received $1.9 million in bonuses. In another year, another million plus. The money was flowing to the Bakkers in ways that most of their donors never saw. Meanwhile, Jim was telling viewers on television that every dollar they sent was going directly to ministry, to spreading the gospel, to building God's kingdom on earth. He cried on camera about the needs of the ministry. He pleaded for donations to keep PTL on the air. He made it sound like they were always on the verge of going under. But behind the scenes, financial controls were basically non-existent. The board of directors was made up of friends and employees who rubber-stamped whatever Jim wanted. Nobody was asking hard questions about where the money was going. And anyone who did ask questions didn't last long at PTL. And then came Jessica Hahn. In 1980, Jim Bakker had a sexual encounter with Jessica Hahn, a 21-year-old church secretary from New York. Bakker would later claim it was consensual. Hahn called it rape. She said she'd been drugged and assaulted in a Florida hotel room. For 7 years, PTL managed to keep this quiet. How? They paid Jessica Hahn $279,000 in hush money, using ministry funds.
Donations given by believers who thought they were supporting Christian television went to silence a woman who said Jim Bakker had assaulted her. $279,000 to make the problem go away. The Charlotte Observer had been investigating PTL's finances for years. Investigative reporter Charles Shepard had published stories questioning the spending, questioning the partnerships, questioning where all that money was really going. Most of the religious world ignored the reports or dismissed them as secular attacks on a godly ministry. But the Jessica Hahn story broke it wide open. In March 1987, the Charlotte Observer published the results of their investigation. The hush money payments, the financial irregularities, the oversold partnerships, the lavish lifestyle funded by donor dollars. Jim Bakker went on television and tried to get ahead of the story. He resigned from PTL, saying he'd been wickedly manipulated by people trying to take over his ministry. He called it a hostile takeover attempt. He said he was the victim. And then he made a decision that would prove catastrophic. He handed control of PTL to Jerry Falwell. The same Jerry Falwell who ran the moral majority. The same Jerry Falwell who had spent years criticizing the charismatic movement that the Bakkers represented. Falwell was a fundamentalist Baptist. The Bakkers were Pentecostal charismatics. Theologically, they were rivals. Jim Bakker thought Falwell would stabilize the ministry and hand it back once the scandal blew over. He was wrong. Because Jerry Falwell didn't come to save PTL. He came to bury it. If you've ever seen anything like this in your own church or a church you know, tell me in the comments. Because these stories keep repeating themselves, and I think it matters that we document them. The scandal went nuclear. And I mean national, prime time, everyone in America is talking about it, nuclear. Jim and Tammy Faye Bakker became the punchline of every late-night joke. Johnny Carson, David Letterman, Saturday Night Live. Their faces were on the cover of Time magazine, Newsweek, People, not as religious leaders, as figures of ridicule. Tammy Faye's mascara running down her face as she cried on television became the defining image of the whole scandal. Comedians called it the oil spill. Drag queens started impersonating her. She became a cultural phenomenon for all the wrong reasons. Jerry Falwell held press conferences where he revealed more and more details about PTL's financial problems. He called the Bakkers' lifestyle obscene. He described a ministry that was rotting from the inside. He presented himself as the reformer who would clean house. But here's the thing Jerry Falwell didn't mention. He was fighting to take control of a media empire worth hundreds of millions of dollars. The satellite network, the theme park, the real estate. The holy war wasn't just about sin. It was about satellites and property and power. Within months, the Bakkers and Falwell were publicly warring with each other. Jim accused Falwell of a hostile takeover and demanded control back. Falwell accused the Bakkers of being unfit to lead and vowed never to let them return. The viewers who had supported PTL for years didn't know what to believe. The ministry they'd trusted was tearing itself apart on national television. Donations collapsed. The lifetime partnership holders started demanding their money back or their rooms. Neither existed. There was no money left. There were no rooms available. And then the federal government got involved. A grand jury began investigating PTL's finances. FBI agents showed up with subpoenas. Financial records were seized. Witnesses were called to testify under oath. And what investigators found was staggering. The overselling of lifetime partnerships wasn't just bad math. It was fraud. Wire fraud. Mail fraud. Conspiracy. Jim Bakker had collected over $158 million for lodging that he knew he couldn't provide. He kept selling partnerships after being warned repeatedly that they were oversold. He directed staff to keep selling anyway. The money had gone to operating expenses that should have been covered by other revenue. It had gone to new construction projects that never finished. And it had gone to personal compensation for Jim and Tammy Faye that totaled more than $3.7 million in bonuses alone. $3.7 million in bonuses. While telling viewers that every donation was going to ministry. In 1989, Jim Bakker was indicted on 8 counts of mail fraud, 15 counts of wire fraud, and 1 count of conspiracy. 24 federal charges. The trial lasted 5 weeks in a Charlotte courtroom. The prosecution presented evidence of systematic deception. Partnership holders testified that they'd been promised accommodations that didn't exist. Financial experts explained how PTL had operated like a Ponzi scheme, using new donations to cover old obligations. Jim Bakker's defense? He said he didn't understand the finances. He said he trusted his employees. He said he was just a preacher doing what God called him to do. He never intended to defraud anyone. He believed Heritage USA would grow big enough to honor all those partnerships eventually. The jury didn't buy it. October 5, 1989. Guilty on all 24 counts. The judge, Robert Potter, sentenced Jim Bakker to 45 years in federal prison and a $500,000 fine. 45 years. It was the longest sentence ever given for a white-collar crime in American history at that point. Judge Potter looked at Jim Bakker and delivered words that echoed across the country. Those of us who do have a religion are sick of being saps for money-grubbing preachers and priests. Jim Bakker collapsed and had to be helped out of the courtroom. Heritage USA closed. The theme park that had welcomed 6 million visitors a year sat abandoned. The buildings deteriorated, the water park drained, the hotels emptied. Weeds grew through the parking lots. The Christian Disneyland became a ghost town. There was no succession plan. There couldn't be. The ministry was destroyed. The assets were seized. The reputation was radioactive. Nobody wanted to touch what was left of PTL. Tammy Faye divorced Jim while he was in prison. She said she still loved him, but she couldn't wait forever. She remarried a man named Roe Messner, ironically the same contractor who had built many of Heritage USA's buildings. She tried to rebuild her career on her own terms. And in a strange twist, Tammy Faye became something of a cult figure. She appeared in documentaries. She did interviews where she seemed genuinely reflective and humble. She became friends with LGBTQ activists at a time when most evangelicals were hostile to gay rights. She was seen as a genuine person who had been caught up in her husband's corruption, someone with a good heart who made terrible choices in who she trusted. But Jim Bakker? Jim Bakker sat in federal prison, watching everything he'd built disappear. His sentence was later reduced on appeal. The original judge had shown improper bias, according to the appeals court. 45 years became 18 years. Then he was paroled after serving just under 5 years in 1994. Everyone assumed that was the end of the Jim Bakker story. A disgraced preacher, convicted of fraud, released from prison into obscurity. What could he possibly do next? They were wrong. Jim Bakker started over. He moved to Branson, Missouri, and launched a new ministry called Morningside. Same concept as Heritage USA on a smaller scale. A community for believers, a place where the faithful could gather. He started a new television show, The Jim Bakker Show. Same format as the old PTL Club. Same music, same appeals, same fundraising tactics. The only difference was the product. Instead of lifetime partnerships at a theme park, Jim Bakker found a new product to sell: survival food. Giant buckets of freeze-dried food for when the apocalypse comes. Emergency meal kits, bulk supplies for the end times. Sell them during the show. Tell viewers that the world is ending soon and they need to be prepared. The marketing was genius in a dark way. Fear of the future, uncertainty about the economy, anxiety about political chaos. Jim Bakker tapped into all of it. Buy this food bucket and you'll survive whatever's coming. At one point, Bakker was selling these food buckets for thousands of dollars. His new ministry was pulling in millions of dollars a year. Again. A convicted fraud was back on television, selling products to believers who either didn't know his history or didn't care. In 2020, the Missouri Attorney General sued Jim Bakker for selling a product he claimed could cure COVID-19, a silver solution that he promoted on his show as a treatment for the virus. He told viewers that lab tests showed silver could eliminate the coronavirus in 12 hours. There was no evidence this was true. The FDA hadn't approved it. Medical experts said it was nonsense. But Jim Bakker sold it anyway. Jim Bakker settled that lawsuit. He agreed to pay refunds to customers. He was prohibited from making health claims about the product. But the show kept going. The ministry kept operating. The money kept coming in. And here's the part that I keep coming back to. If you're someone who believes these ministries should be accountable, if you think someone should be documenting these patterns, then subscribe, because we will keep telling these stories. And if you want to see every story first, there's a members link below. Jim Bakker went to federal prison for fraud. He admitted he oversold partnerships. He admitted he misused donations. He was convicted by a jury of his peers and sentenced by a judge who called him a money grubber. He served his time. He got out. And he started the exact same business model all over again. Different products, different location, same playbook. Make appeals on television, promise spiritual benefits, create urgency through fear. Take the money. Tammy Faye died of cancer in 2007. She spent her final years trying to separate herself from the scandal, trying to be remembered for more than just the mascara and the money. By many accounts, she succeeded. Her funeral was attended by people from across the religious and secular spectrum who had come to admire her humanity. Heritage USA still sits mostly abandoned in South Carolina. Some of the buildings have been demolished. Some have been repurposed by new owners. The water park is overgrown. The hotels are empty shells. But the Christian Disneyland that welcomed 6 million visitors a year is gone forever. And Jim Bakker? Jim Bakker is still on television, still selling, still asking for donations. He's in his 80s now. He's had strokes. His health has declined. His show doesn't have the reach it once did. The glory days of PTL are long gone. But he never stopped. Not after the scandal. Not after prison, not after the lawsuits. He just kept going. The system that was supposed to hold him accountable did its job once. He went to prison. He paid a fine. Justice was served. The legal system worked exactly as designed. And then the system let him start again. No regulatory body stopped him from launching a new ministry. No federal agency prevented him from going back on television. No law prevented him from selling products to believers who trusted that he'd learned his lesson. That's not a failure of the legal system. The legal system did what it was designed to do. That's a failure of something else. Something harder to regulate. Something harder to fix. Maybe it's a failure of us, the viewers, the donors, the people who keep tuning in, the audience that makes this business model profitable. Jim Bakker built a $172 million empire on faith and trust. He went to prison when that trust was betrayed. He served his time, he got out, and then he built another empire using the same playbook. The question isn't whether Jim Bakker changed. The question is whether we did.
Well, the times they are a-changing fast. Some old truths just built to last. We're the Christ following network on Bullet and Flight Radio. Yeah, the Christ following network on Bullet and Flight Radio. Christ following network on Bullet and Flight Radio.
If you've ever felt trapped in that endless top 40 loop, you know the feeling. Same songs, same sounds, same safe choices. Like the world hit repeat and lost the button to try something new. Today, I want to introduce you to a crew that's built to do the exact opposite. Change the station entirely. Bullet and Flight is based right in the heart of the 505, Albuquerque, where the green chili runs hot and the creative energy somehow runs even hotter. And when I say Bullet and Flight, I'm not talking about one single project or one single vibe. Think of it more like a parent company to a whole family of artistic misfits. People who don't fit neatly into the usual boxes, and honestly, don't want to. At the center of everything is a mission that's pretty simple to say, but not always easy to pull off. Elevate the voices that usually get talked over. The artists who get labeled too niche, or too different, or that weird one, too Albuquerque. Whatever that's supposed to mean. If you've ever heard something like that about your work, this is your invitation to pull up a chair. Because that's not a deal breaker here. That's the whole point. Bullet and Flight is built around inclusivity, creative community building, and giving underrepresented artists the megaphone they deserve. Not as a trend, not as a marketing angle, but as the core identity. It's a response to a creative world that can feel gated, filtered, and overly polished, where the most interesting voices get told to tone it down so they can be easier to sell. And here's where it gets fun. Bullet and Flight doesn't believe in staying in one lane. Because why would you?
Why drive a sedan when you could take a spaceship?
The whole approach is more like, what does human expression look like across every format? And then going after all of it. Let's start with music, because that's a major part of the DNA. The mindset here isn't pick a genre and stay in it. It's more like, what's the vibe and does it hit? That can mean the spiritual charge of gospel, the late-night pulse of house music, the smooth storytelling and emotion of R&B, or even that classic country charm where life falls apart but somehow the drink is still cold. It's not about fitting into a category. It's about making something that feels alive. But it doesn't stop at music. There's a strong dedication to the spoken word too. Podcasts that get into the real stuff, not just surface-level chatter, and poetry that doesn't play nice. The kind that lands heavy, the kind that says what people avoid saying, the kind that reminds you words can still be dangerous in the best way. Then there's film and TV writing. Getting into scripts that actually have a heartbeat. Not another recycled reboot of a reboot. Not something designed by committee to offend the fewest people possible. The focus is on stories with soul. Stories with perspective. Stories that sound like they came from real lives, in real places, with real edges. And of course, the stage.
Because there is nothing like live performance.
It's unpredictable, it's electric, and yeah, anything can happen. And usually does. The stage is where art stops being an idea and becomes a moment, right in front of people who can feel it in real time. So why would an artist want to plug into something like this? Because being a starving artist has been romanticized for way too long, and it doesn't need to be the default. And being a lonely artist, trying to build everything by yourself, with no village, no network, no support, that's even worse. Bullet and Flight is about building that village on purpose. The goal is to take the talent that's been brewing in the Southwest, often overlooked, often underestimated, and project it outward. Not in a please notice us kind of way, but in a we're already here, and we're bringing the whole sound with us kind of way. Bullet and Flight positions itself as a launch pad, a safety net, and the hype you didn't realize you were missing. And let's be honest, A lot of people are tired of gatekeepers. Tired of needing permission. Tired of feeling like they have to sand down everything interesting about their work to be taken seriously. If that's you, this is a space that's built for finding your tribe. People who want loud, weird, real art, and who aren't afraid to make it together.
If you want to get in the mix, Deombase is https://just-dominic.
And if you want the visuals, you can find the YouTube channel at Just Dominic Music. Bullet and Flight Music, LLC is the company behind it all. And the invitation is open. Check out what's being built, listen to what's coming out, and if you're ready to change the station, this is a good place to start.
Fly